Go ahead.
The Heat needed a win, and Atlanta's Trae Young was just what the doctor ordered. We break down what stood out before talking about Omer Yurtseven's return to the Heat and whether he might be able to crack the rotation. And the latest reporting on Kyle Lowry just makes the point guard's future even murkier. We try to make sense of it all on today's live episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil, recording this live on a Monday. Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. If you can, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube. And then later, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, hit subscribe there as well. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. We're going to hand out credit cookies for Saturday's win against the Hawks here in a second. Look ahead to tonight's game and get the latest on Omer Yurtseven and Kyle Lowry in a minute. But David, Ted Lasso is coming back later this month, and I'm excited about it. I was thinking about a scene from last season over the weekend where one of the players on Ted Lasso's team, after getting the yips early in the season, is taken to a local park by one of the coaches to get his confidence back. So he goes. He plays against a bunch of amateurs, and it works. The player loses the yips. He gets his confidence back. He's playing like himself again. Ted Lasso's team goes on a run. It's kind of like the whole story of the season. And I was thinking about this on Saturday night as the Heat were beating the Hawks, because I think that Trae Young is the Heat's amateur in the park. I think that the Heat have so much confidence in playing the Atlanta Hawks after losing 6 of 7, that heartbreaking loss against the New York Knicks, that they just needed a get-right game. And so they called up Trae Young. I am aware this is not how the NBA schedule works, but they call up Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks, and they say, come into town. We need a get-right game. We need to play some amateurs in the park. They suddenly look like themselves again. They get that big win against Atlanta. There's an identity with them. There's a confidence with them after that game. There's just this comfort zone in playing against the Atlanta Hawks. What do you think? Do you think that the Heat got right against the Atlanta Hawks? Do you think that the Atlanta Hawks and Trae Young is Miami's amateurs in the park?
It's a nice stepping stone, but I think the Heat are self-aware enough to realize that they need to continue to string these wins together, that beating up on still a team kind of trying to figure out their identity. And look, Trae Young's been struggling all season. His shooting has been off. He missed the All-Star game. And I think there's some continuing lack of confidence after he got destroyed by the Miami's defense in the playoffs. So I think that's probably still lingering somewhere in the back of his mind. I'd love to be able to say, you know what, this makes total sense. Call up the Trae Young and the Hawks and get yourself right. But I don't think the Heat are there. I don't think the Heat sees that opportunity yet. I think they need to continue to build off that win. Like that. I will say it's a positive step, but they played the Knicks very, very tough the night before. They bounced back less than 24 hours later, had to figure it out, and took on a team that's challenging for a play-in spot in the Eastern Conference standings.
But that's what I'm saying. Like that Knicks game, not just in the way that it ended with the Julius Randle shot, that was old school, blood in the garden, Knicks Heat, 90s, like physical, and then they, on the second night of a back-to-back, have to host the Atlanta Hawks. Like, there is no reason why they should have won that game on the second night of a back-to-back after a physical game like that. And yet, it's like the big brother just playing his little brother. It's just like, you know what? I just need to get a win today. I just need to get a win. And they just have this confidence against the Hawks. I don't really know what it is. And it's not just last night. Like, the Heat, since the beginning of last year.
It goes back to that game with Trae Young. What was it, 3 seasons ago? It's over. It's over.
Yeah.
And then they came back on them and wound up beating them in overtime.
And then you look at the beginning of last year, the Heat are 9-3 against the Hawks in the regular season, and then 13-4 if you include last year's 4-1 playoff win against the Hawks. Like, they have the Hawks number. Trae Young averages 21 points on 39% shooting and 5.6 turnovers per game against the Heat. He's shooting less than 40% and almost 6 turnovers a game against the Heat. He had just 8 points on 13 shots on Saturday, 5 turnovers on Saturday. Trae Young is a guy who, is routinely at the top of the league in points, assists, whatever. One of the best young point guards in the league. You could talk about some of the locker room stuff that's going on in Atlanta, but there's no doubt that he's talented. Miami makes him look like Ish Smith sometimes out there. It's crazy.
No, not Ish Smith. Ish Smith has burnt Miami a lot more. I think I think it's part of Trae Young's just erratic playing style. Like the fact that he's so dependent on the long range shots, that he's not quite physical enough to get into the paint and shoot at a high percentage. And his passing, as dangerous as it is, kind of plays into the style of defense that Miami thrives in, attacking passing lanes, forcing turnovers, things of that sort. So maybe it's just a matter of a really bad matchup for Atlanta.
I think that's right. And he just has not been able to figure out how to attack Miami's like blitz and help, their show scheme when they come up across the level of the screen, or even when they blitz completely or try to trap on the pick and roll. Like they show him all these different looks, and then they go to zone, and Trae Young's like, wait, what's happening now? Right. But that's the thing that kind of Trae Young is a super high basketball IQ player. Like he's one of the best passers in the NBA. It's not just a racking up assist numbers for him, right? Like in the way that, maybe like a Russell Westbrook in OKC was just sort of, I'm not going to use the word stat padding because that seems to be a polarizing term. I'm not going to use that word.
He's no Nikola Jovic, that's for sure.
Jokic or Jovic.
Oh, whichever one.
No, but he's a genius passer. And that's what's so strange about it. Like the Heat are not the only team in the league that blitz and trap off of screens. Like a lot of teams do it. A lot of teams play zone, not as much as Miami, but a lot of teams will show zone every once in a while. Like, I don't know. It's just, I think it's like big brother, little brother. I think the fact that they see each other so much in the same division, and that the Heat have such a track record against success of success against the Hawks and against Trae Young, that it is just like, okay, if we need to get right, call up the Atlanta Hawks, bring them into town, or heck, we'll go into Atlanta and face them, and then we'll feel like ourselves again. They play the Hawks again tonight. But before we get to all of that kind of stuff, let's just hand out some credit cookies because we didn't get to do that Saturday night. And we haven't gotten to do it in a while. Usually we'll just skip it if it happens on the weekend, David. But we got some cookies burning the lining of our pockets here that we got to hand out. That's not how cookies work either. But
no.
Credit cookies for Saturday's win. Who comes to mind right away? It does it have to just be Bam Adebayo, 30 points on 12 shots, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. He was awesome. 2 blocks.
Struggling a little bit since the All-Star break, maybe even just before that as well. Kind of found his rhythm going against Clint Capella and just looked aggressive all game long. 36 minutes of play for him to be able to bounce back after, again, a tough game against the Knicks, and to have that monster performance quieted a lot of the critics that had been pointing out, and rightfully so, that Bam had been struggling of late. But it seems like he's doing a little bit more, and let's see if he can continue it going on to Monday's game as well.
I'm gonna give him 4 credit cookies. Tyler Hero, 20 points on 8 of 21 shooting. Like the percentage wasn't where you wanted it to be, but I didn't really care watching that game. I thought that they needed his aggression, especially on the perimeter in terms of a score. Yeah. He also had 6 rebounds and 5 assists, so his floor game was really good. Yeah, he had 4 turnovers, but I was okay. Like there was none of those turnovers where I was like, "What are you doing?" Right? Like he was trying to make things happen, and I think this Heat team just really needs guys making stuff happen. So I liked Tyler's assertiveness in that game. So like two credit cookies for him.
I think that's fair. Okay. Jimmy probably gets one as well, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it's
Jimmy
a quiet game, but impactful. And look, that's a recipe for success for Miami. They don't necessarily need, it hasn't been of late, but when the team is playing their best version of basketball, Jimmy doesn't always have to dominate. Like they can take it to another level and have Jimmy become the dominant superstar that we've seen him be. But tonight, I rather on Saturday night, I think they just got a very effective Jimmy Butler performance. 15
points on 8 shots, 11 rebounds, 7 assists, a couple of steals. He was a +9. That was behind only Bam and Tyler, who already got credit cookies. So Jimmy gets 1. All right, headliner here. Not to bury the lead. Cody Zeller. What was going on with Cody Zeller on Saturday night? 13 points on 4 of 4 shooting. Had a couple of rebounds. Like defensively, he was a presence. I loved the way that he was involved in the screening actions and getting other players involved. Like he had 0 assists, and it felt like, I haven't looked at the screen assist numbers. Apologies to David Locke, but like it felt like he was so involved in the playmaking part of it because of the screening and his ability to kind of facilitate up high on the floor with the dribble handoffs and stuff like that. Again, did not record an assist, but was very involved in sort of the facilitating of the offense. And so I thought he was awesome. And then he had that one layup where he he brought it down the floor or whatever it was, and then ended up with the dunk or whatever it was. Like, I don't even remember what exactly was happening Saturday night, but Cody Zeller was awesome Saturday night off the bench.
He gets a cookie, right? I think he gets at least one, maybe
he gets 2.
Well, we got to give Caleb Martin one too, because he played some good solid minutes.
6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So, okay. You're right. So he gets 1. He should get 2, but he gets 1 because we have 2 more cookies to give out. So Caleb gets 1 too. 15 points off the bench for him on 10 shot attempts, 3 rebounds, an assist, a steal, a block. Was doing everything. 30 minutes he played. And Spo, after the game, shouted him out and was like, he's been awesome ever since we moved him back to the bench after the All-Star break. I don't know that he's been this awesome. This was the most awesome game he's had since the All-Star break, but they need these kinds of contributions. If you can get 13 points and 15 points from a couple of players off the bench every single night, you're talking about an elevated Miami Heat team. And that's sort of the idea, even in starting Kevin Love, was, okay, can we kind of bolster the bench a little bit in doing this too? And we hadn't really seen that in terms of a production standpoint, maybe in Caleb's approach, and everybody in the Heat praises Caleb's approach every single night. But at some point, you need like real points and production, and we got it tonight or on Saturday night.
No doubt. No, I think it was fantastic performance. I would give him the 2 cookies out of the 3 remaining and give Zeller one of those just because he played the extended minutes and because his role has changed so dramatically. But you have to tip your hat to Zeller being able to come in there in 12 minutes and still have that kind of incredibly impactful game.
Does Spo get 1 for tinkering with the rotations a little bit? He gave Bam an extended run in the first half, and then in the second half, made sure that Jimmy and Bam were on the court at all times. The Heat have went from like 6 to 7 minutes of no Jimmy Bam minutes to 2 minutes against Atlanta of no Jimmy and Bam. And that seemed to have worked, right? Yeah. And I've never been I was kind of defending Spo's decision with the lineup changes before, but because the way that Jimmy and Bam play together, the Heat are basically dominant when they play together. And so I think Spo was trying to maximize their minutes together. And in doing that, you do have to play a few minutes with neither of them on the floor. And if you look at the net ratings and all the lineup data, it backs up Spo's decision. But sometimes also you kind of just got to go by feel. And it felt like recently the Heat just couldn't afford to have either of them off the court. And so right now, I think that this is what the Heat needed. And I think Spo had his finger on the pulse the right way. So I think he gets, if not a credit cookie, if you want to give 2 credit cookies to Caleb Martin, at least a shout out to Spo for that decision.
That's fair. I think the criticism also has been, well, why did it take so long to realize how, what even casual fans have noticed is that when they're both off the floor, this team's really, really bad. And it has bit them in the rear last few games. And so you wonder, look, Spo can be both flexible and a little bit too rigid in his decision-making process. And it's not to be critical of him necessarily, but you wonder why he didn't make this change a little bit sooner. So I think that's worth pointing out as well.
Sure. I think a lot of coaches are like that. And Spo is no different. Omer Yurtseven impressed in his Sioux Falls Skyforce debut. Could he see some sign tonight for the Miami Heat? That's coming up next, David.
Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Daily fantasy made easy. You can take the statistics that you think a player will reach. Luka Doncic to score more than 25 points. Steph Curry to have more than 3.5 3-pointers made. Maybe you can go with Kevin Love pulling down more than 5 rebounds on any given night. But that's what makes PrizePicks so much fun and so easy to use. It's just, you versus the projected PrizePicks numbers. You can pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less than those projections, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. It's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the numbers. And PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you can watch, including the NBA, of course, men's and women's college basketball, go Canes, soccer, the WNBA, Euro basketball, disc golf, cricket, and so much more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals, and currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up today and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match of up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. So if you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. So don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100 by downloading the PrizePicks app or going to prizepicks.com today.
Locked On Heat is also available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so please do subscribe over there. Over the weekend, Omer Yurtseven made his season debut with the Sioux Falls Skyforce. He had 27 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. Looked good in those minutes, especially with his conditioning. He was running up and down the floor really well. Actually had a rebound and dribbled it down the court, went coast to coast on one possession. So impressive that he's been called up to the NBA. He's available for the Miami Heat tonight against the Hawks. David, how excited are you to see, potentially, at least, Big Yurt again.
Not in the least. I'm excited for Yurtseven. Like, having talked to him in the preseason, and we spoke to him a couple of times. We spoke to him at Media Day, gave a great interview, and you could tell how excited and invested he was in making this season just an opportunity for him to showcase what he'd been working on over the off season, over the summer. The talk about playing alongside Bam and helping unlock Bam as a 4, just getting the best version of this roster and maximizing his own individual abilities. Like that was something that was tangible. You could feel in conversation with him how much there was to look forward to him. And then he misses all the season with injury, and it's just been a very lost season for him. I'm glad that he's come back. I'm glad that he is nearing a return and could potentially see some playing time tonight. I just don't know how much it moves the needle, especially when we just finished talking about Cody Zeller. To me, it's never been about the backups. They have to play their role. They have to be effective. But this team only goes as far as Jimmy, Bam, and perhaps Tyler Hero can take them.
I'm excited to potentially see him because I do think he adds a different kind of dimension to this team in terms of potentially being able to space the floor. You mentioned our conversations with him. He talked a lot about how much the Heat were working with him and Bam in those sort of front court alignments and sort of the rules that they were going to have and how those two were going to play together. That was very much a goal set forth by the Heat going into the season. Hey, we want Bam and Yurt are not going to start together in the front court. I think they still envisioned it at that point being Caleb Martin, but they were going to get to pockets of the game where you saw Yurt and Bam together, and they were going to try to they were going to test drive. They test drove it a little bit in the preseason when we saw it, and I remember talking to Yurt in the locker room after one of the preseason games, and he basically walked me through all of their offensive and defensive rules when those two big men were on the court and how they had to clear out for each other on offense and defensively, how they were going to switch assignments and cover up for each other, and which one was going to be low and high and all these other things. I don't know that we're going to get to that because it's been so long, right? Because most of those reps came in training camp in the Bahamas and a little bit in the preseason.
You can't go to that now. You can't go to that package now.
Not right away. And so I'm wondering, like, what does it look like? Yeah, probably not. Probably not. I think maybe if you go 10 games and maybe the thing is they're not going to have enough practices between now and the end of the season. They're going to limit the practices too. So
don't rock the boat that much.
Yeah.
Put him in and basically play the same role that Zeller's playing, screen and roll, pick and pop a little bit maybe, because I think he does have enough touch around the basket, but you want to maximize his size around the basket because he does have good feel, good touch. He's a good rebounder and puts up good, rebounds per possession numbers and things of that sort. So I think that you can absolutely get the most out of those limited minutes for Yurtseven, but I don't know that he's also a big need right now with Cody Zeller playing so well.
Well, that was sort of my next question because the way that Omer Yurtseven looked, and he had 28, 17, and 3 in the next game too after his debut with the Skyforce, and now that he's been called up, he just played a couple of Skyforce games. So that's the other thing. I don't know that he's going to play tonight, right? It's just give him a break, give him some rest. He just played 2 games while in the same time that Miami basically played 1. But I don't know. Like Cody Zeller's played so well for them. So can you really afford? I think you want, but you also want to see some minutes for Omer, right? Like you want to. This guy's also a restricted free agent, and you kind of want to see what you have here. Maybe you don't really even need to if he looks this good in the Skyforce. Maybe you send him up and down, but at the same time, like why bring him up then? Like you could just let him run it out with the Skyforce if you never plan to use him. So I don't think it's black and white. I think Cody Zeller is still going to be the backup for the Miami Heat, but I think they want him available in case, maybe it's not a great Cody Zeller game, right? Maybe you don't get the same game that you got against Atlanta on Saturday. And maybe then you turn to Omer Yurtseven, or maybe you try to get him some run in the first half, and maybe less high stake minutes and stuff like that. But I find it hard to believe that we're not going to see any of Omer Yurtseven. Again, maybe not tonight against the Hawks, but going forward, I think we're going to have to see him. And there's always moments in the regular season, even at this point in the regular season with 16, 17 games left, where you can find minutes for a backup center. So I think we'll see him, but I don't think that he's going to come in right away and supplant Cody Zeller as Bam's backup because Cody Zeller's earned these minutes. He's been great in these minutes.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting factor in all this decision-making process is I don't think that you're going to use the next month, however long the regular season and whatever playoff run you might have strings together. I don't think you're going to use that as a barometer for what Omer Yurtseven is. If you've had him on your team for 2+ years, and you need this much time just to figure it out, you haven't done a very good job of analyzing his game and helping him maximize who he is as an individual. So I don't think there's any need to play him some time now just to see what he has before he enters restricted free agency. If anything, you might want to limit his playing time because you don't want to increase his value. And I don't know that the Heat are going to be so conniving in order to do that, but I don't think there's a need for Yurtseven to get any kind of consistent playing time. Like, you want to try put him in there, have him, test the waters a little bit, have some good minutes, and then you're confident that you can go with Bam, you can go with Cody, or you can go with Omer Yurtseven for a limited stretch of time. I don't see a rush to get Yurtseven out there either. So I agree with that point. I think he's going to get some playing time, but I don't think it's necessary in order to gauge what you have entering restricted free agency. If anything, it might be the exact opposite.
That's a good point. I just watching him with the Skyforce, though. I mean, he made a couple of threes. He's so big. Like, he's got those magnet hands for offensive rebounds and putbacks. Yeah. Like, you forget, like, this guy, he's a walking double-double in the G League. He was almost a walking double-double in the NBA too, last year. And so when we talked about, like, needing that production from Zeller and Caleb Martin, that's the one thing about Yurtseven that you can kind of rely on is, defensively, he's not as good as Cody Zeller. Even as a playmaker, he's getting better, but I think Cody Zeller is just so much more experienced and he's kind of honed that part of his game even more. But Yurtseven definitely has ball skills. Like, he made this one pass cross court in his first game against the Skyforce, or for the Skyforce, where, like, he was high up on the floor and then he just made this opposite side of the floor, just whip pass into the corner for a wide open three. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, I don't even remember seeing this kind of stuff in the NBA last year. So he's got, like, the skill. And he's got the productivity that the Heat really do need from this bench. And so I think the Heat, it's open. I think it's open-ended. They're going to say,
who do you trust in the playoffs? Who do you trust in the playoffs?
Zeller, no doubt about it. But they got to get to the playoffs first. And I think if there's a night where they're not getting that production from Cody Zeller off the bench, because Cody Zeller's been impressive, but he's not also been like 10 points and a bunch of rebounds. And
because he's not looking to score. He's not looking to score. When Yurtseven gets the ball in his hands,
players. Yeah. They do need to get these points off the bench at some point. Like, I know we all love the other things and the winning plays and stuff, but points are still the stat that matter the most. Because if you get more points in the team, you win more times than not.
That is usually how it works out. Yeah.
On Twitter poll, we asked, should Omer Yurtseven get minutes over Cody Zeller tonight? 39% of you said yes. 61% of you said no. So a majority of us, of you guys agreeing with us. And let's also keep in mind that Omer Yurtseven might need some rest tonight against the Hawks. I do think we'll see him eventually. How that looks, who knows? I guess they'll figure it out. Speaking of seeing somebody eventually, the latest on Kyle Lowry and why it could be getting less and less likely that he'll play again this season. But first, David, tell listeners about our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories, you've got to try a Built Bar. So many of you make resolutions at the start of the year. You want to eat healthy. It's a year-round goal. You don't necessarily need the New Year's for that. And you're not quite sure exactly how to supplement your diet. You want a good tasting snack that happens to be healthy for you. Well, then you've got to try Built Bar, because with Built, healthy is actually tasty. They're so delicious. You won't think they're good for you, but they are. They're 100% covered in chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. You'll love the taste. They come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how they do it, but they do maintain a healthy level of all the nutrients that you're looking for, while also maintaining an amazing taste. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, with a whopping 17 grams of protein. Did I mention 100% covered in chocolate? Now you don't need to wait around to get a box for years. We've been talking about ordering your Built Bars by going to Built.com. That was the only way to do it. But now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. Head to your nearest Walmart today. Walk to the pharmacy section. Grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or Wes's favorite coconut puffs. Or if you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You'll thank me later. And of course, you can always still go to Built.com.
Reach Locked On Heat on Twitter, Instagram, email us, lockedonheat@gmail.com. So let's get to this Kyle Lowry situation, because it's getting weirder and weirder. To recap really quick. Kyle Lowry has not played since February 2nd because of a knee injury. He was shopped aggressively and openly before the trade deadline, was not moved, still with the team, has yet to play. He was upgraded to questionable for last week's game in Philadelphia, traveled with the team, but then going through some pregame stuff, decided that before the game that his knee wasn't ready. And so he was ruled out, did not play that game, and has been ruled out indefinitely. And that's some of the reporting that's been used by the beat guys here locally. indefinitely is kind of the new word being used there in terms of his status. He's out for tonight's game against the Hawks, obviously. When asked about it on Saturday before the Hawks game, Spo declined to answer. So, David, here's what Spo said before the game. I found it at least interesting. Let's see how we can do this.
Eric, is there an expectation for Kyle Lowry to return during the regular season?
Tonight.
Is there an expectation for him to return during the regular
Same
season?
process, the same protocol. He's making progress, and that's all I got for you today.
That's all he had for Ira that day. And that's all he had for Anthony. When Anthony asked Spo about it a couple games before that, it's all he's had for Barry Jackson. It's all that he's had for anybody. It's all that he's had for any question pertaining to Kyle Lowry. It's the typical non-answer about injuries from Spo. He does not comment on injuries. He doesn't give timetables. That is a known thing about Eric Spoelstra. I don't know about you, though. This just seems a little bit, I don't know, man. That seems a little bit different. Are people reading too much into this, or is this just Spo being Spo?
Well, I think that's both. I think that's the same thing, right? I think people are reading too much into it. And I think Spo is being Spo. And I think that's just, I can't say, and I won't say, rather, that there isn't something going on. I don't think there's this kind of lack of communication between Eric Spoelstra, the medical staff, and Kyle Lowry. I just think something isn't disclosing the full story here. I know there's a lack of communication between everyone in the Heat organization and media. They're certainly not telling anybody. And I think a lot of the reporting that's been done, and it's not to knock Barry Jackson or anybody else, but I think everybody's looking for clues because this has taken such a weird and drastic turn. And I'm not sure anybody has any clarity. And the team and Kyle aren't helping themselves by providing that clarity. So there's the potential that
so we're left with nothing else but to look for clues, to your point. Yes.
So there's a possibility that he's hurt, and as a result, that he's taking time off in order to recover. That seems to me like it makes the most sense. He has been off. He hasn't been playing effectively. Why not take a couple minutes during the regular season, especially when you have a quality backup in Gabe Vincent? Yeah. You've got enough ball handlers in Jimmy, Bam, etc., Victor Oladipo, Tyler Hero, that could share the load so that it doesn't fall on any one player in particular. And when he comes back at full strength, as you and I have discussed many times, this team is definitely better with Lowry out there on the floor playing.
A healthy Kyle Lowry.
Kyle Lowry.
Yes.
So why not take that time and wait for him to come back? So I think that's
I get that. I get that. What I don't understand is why not say that if you're the Miami Heat? And look, I'm so wrong on this kind of stuff all the time because
why would you say that though?
Well, I'm gonna get to that, and I just
okay.
I don't know how much I really, and if you're watching this live on YouTube, if you care about this at all, let me know, because I have such a hard time. I struggle with what fans care about, what fans want out of the reporting around their team. If I'm a fan of the Miami Heat, I want to know if Kyle Lowry is playing. If I'm a fan of the Minnesota Timberwolves, I want to know if Anthony Edwards is playing. I just want to know if my players are playing or not, right? And if they're not, when they are going to play. And so if I find it, obviously, as media, incredibly frustrating that the Heat are not more transparent about this stuff. And I think it's problematic for the Heat because all it leaves us to do is speculate and be like, well, is there a confrontation between Kyle Lowry and the Heat organization? Does Kyle Lowry not get along with his teammates or coaches? And that speculation is happening in other outlets, right? You and I have been very careful on this stuff, but it's getting more and more difficult to be careful on this because we're getting no information. And the lack of transparency from the Heat, if you could just come out, look, it's not like Kyle Lowry is like questionable every night like he was against Philadelphia and then testing the knee and he's not ready. It's not like he's a game time decision. He is out indefinitely. If I'm the Heat, why don't I just say something? Make it up, but give us something. Be like, hey, we're going to reevaluate him in 2 weeks. Be like, okay, now we cannot talk about this for 2 weeks. And even if you're not, like, I guess you're evaluating him every day, so it's not true. But that's what I don't understand from the Heat is that they're trying to be so protective about this that it leads us to do nothing more than to speculate. And look, we get so many questions about Kyle Lowry for the show that I do think that there's an interest by fans to know what's going on with Kyle Lowry, but I don't know that there's an interest in the reporting behind it. Or I guess the inside baseball stuff of, well, of course, Spo is going to be not tell anybody because he should be secretive. And it's like, well, should he be? Because now it leads everybody to speculate, and it kind of creates this outside noise, this outside drama. And teams can talk all the time about how they don't care about the outside noise or that outside drama, but they do. Like, I can tell you for a fact, every team cares a little bit, or it seeps into the locker room and it affects things in some way all the time. There's no way to hide from it these days. And so if I'm just the Heat, why not get out in front of this thing instead of make everybody kind of just throw out these random questions and hypotheses about what could be happening when if maybe it's not happening.
I think the reporting has been overdone. I don't think the fans, and maybe this speaks to what you said as far as not having your finger exactly on.
I have no idea what they. I have no, because I always get in trouble about this. I always get in trouble with this stuff.
I don't think the fans care. I don't think the fans care about what his status is or not.
Tiff cares. Tiff says, "I want to know what's going on behind the scenes."
Yeah, that's Tiff. I know. Yeah, of course Tiff wants to know, but that's Tiff. She's the rarity there. I think that's
Tiff's the rare one for sure.
Yeah, she's like 0.01% of the Heat fan base. He stunk before the injury, before he sat out games, and now he's taken more time to come back. I think Heat fans would probably have been happiest that he had been traded and he wouldn't be their problem, so they can continue to call him fat ass loser, overpaid, et cetera, et cetera. That's what fans wanted to do with Kyle Lowry. They wanted him off their team. He's not off their team. No team is going to take him at $30 million per year. He's not productive enough for that. So why not just be patient and hope that he comes back at full strength? To that point, I think his persnickety nature has pissed off enough reporters, and reporters, especially South Florida reporters, tend to be a little interested in the rumor mongering to some degree. They love what we call in Cuban culture, el tiki-tiki. They love the little behind-the-scenes talk and things of that sort. They love the gossipy nature of reporting. I think that's just the nature of some of these guys. And so when there's just a tiny el tiki-tiki, that's Cuban. I think that's a Cuban thing.
Yeah, I think it's now a South Florida thing, because I've heard that.
Okay.
From the Colombian side of my family a little bit too.
Oh,
so maybe it's just the South Florida, and maybe it's you guys have brought it to South Florida. No, the El Tiki Tiki is a real thing, and that's all we have is El Tiki Tiki, because we have no reporting around this, because they won't say anything, and it's no other NBA team operates this way. It would be it would be so easy. Hey, if you guys don't want to field these questions, lie. Just lie. They lie all the time. There was a comment earlier.
2 week postponement. You brought up a great point. 2 weeks. We'll evaluate him in 2 weeks. And he's not ready. Push it for another 2 weeks, and then you don't have to answer the same questions.
And then come back. Like, we reevaluated him. We're going to reevaluate him in another week, and just be like, okay. Yeah. And then at that point, it gets fishy again. And at this point, honestly, it would be fishy already now. It's like, wait, okay. But it's because now it's going to be like, well, he wasn't. He was day to day, and now did he have a setback in the injury? Now you have to answer those questions. So it's too late for that now. But just like word of advice, Miami Heat, like, don't do this. Don't do it this way. It's not good. And it's not good because we're frustrated reporters. It's not good because there are reporters and media around your team no matter what. You and I, like I said, we've been very careful about this stuff. We have not speculated wildly. But I got nothing left but the El Tiki Tiki at this point. I got nothing left, right? And I want to know what's going on. So,
well, you brought up a good point recently, right? I know you were going to take the point a little bit. You get one every month. You know, why not? No, I think that maybe there might be a little bit of hurt feeling on Lowry's end, right? That
so I think that it is up to Kyle Lowry. Ultimately, this stuff is up to the player, right? The team cannot force a player out there. And I think that's what's going on here. Is there is a little bit of a disconnect between Kyle Lowry and the team. The team wants him out there. I have no doubt about that. The team wants him out there. They need as many bodies as possible. As you and I have said, there is a belief in that organization, and it's the thing that we're reporting. A healthy Kyle Lowry still helps this team. They believe that. They probably believe that Kyle Lowry is as close to nobody's 100% at this point in the season. Nobody is. Right. Jimmy Butler's not. Bam Adebayo's not. Tyler Hero. Nobody is. And I think Kyle Lowry's like, well, you know what? I don't feel all that valued because you were shopping me as openly as you've been about anything recently. Right. You were openly shopping me before the deadline. If I'm Kyle Lowry, I would be insulted. I get that. Oh, this is the notoriously closed off team. And all of a sudden you're like, Kyle Lowry, who wants him? You're like taking numbers like at a carnival. And it's like, and like, yeah, I would be upset if I were Kyle Lowry. I came here to win. I left, where I had a Hall of Fame established career in Toronto to come here and try to win games and win championships. And obviously it has not gone to plan. And Kyle Lowry is a part of that. Like, I'm not saying he's absolved of all guilt here, but he's probably like, you know what? You didn't want me, so why am I going to go out there and risk my body? I've got another year left on my contract. I don't want this to be – I want to prolong my career as long as possible. I'm going to take care of me. I'm going to look out for me because it's obvious that nobody else is looking out, is putting me first. And I'm not blaming the Heat, by the way. I'm not. But I can understand where Kyle Lowry is coming from, and I can understand where the Miami Heat are coming from. And, hey, you're under contract. We need to try to make the playoffs. Every game matters here. We need you out there. And Kyle Lowry being like, I need me right here until I'm perfectly healthy enough to go out there and not just and I'm going to contribute so that I can increase my value. Because guess what? I already know I'm not going to be here next year. So I want to create the best situation for myself as possible too. Like, I get it from both sides. I understand it.
Yeah.
If that's what's happening.
I could see that perspective. I think that's, maybe like overstating it to a little bit degree there. I think he just needs the time. I don't think that there's this huge divide between the front office, the coaching staff, and Kyle Lowry. I know that they want him to be more productive, but you can't force a player at 37 years old to all of a sudden discover the fountain of youth. If Ponce de Leon couldn't do it, I don't see any chance that Kyle Lowry could do it, especially when
I thought Ponce de Leon did do it.
No, that's just a rumor. Nobody had. If there was a fountain of youth to discover, don't you think we'd all know about it, buddy? Come on.
It was right there in St. Augustine. I've seen it. I drank water from it. It's gross.
Yeah, that's the fountain of bacteria, not the fountain of youth.
I actually went 2 years ago, and they actually you used to be able to go. I remember going as a kid on a field trip, and you used to like get like a little paper cup and take it right from the fountain. And I think they realized that that's disgusting. And so now it's just like a water fountain. Like you would find it like a gym. Like it's just like a regular water fountain now.
Fill up your bottle with it.
Yeah, exactly. And and they're like, no, it really comes directly from this fountain of youth. I was like, BS. It does not come from this fountain of youth. It comes from your plumbing, probably.
So he's been practicing with the team. Like we've seen him at practices. And
he's practicing. That's the other thing. He's with the team. He's on the bench. He's coaching up teammates and stuff on the bench. That's what's weird. It's not like an absence from the team.
And I believe Kyle when he said he came to Miami to win and he wants to help win. And that's his goal. He didn't just come here to take the paycheck. That's certainly a part of it. But we all have conveniently had this mass misremembering that free agency period. Like there's a reason why Miami was fined for tampering is because 4 other teams were clamoring for his addition, like Dallas, New Orleans, Chicago. Philadelphia. They were all really in the mix to bring in Kyle Lowry at the same salary. He chose to come to Miami because he thought that they were the closest to a championship. So I don't think Kyle is sitting out just to protest anything and to continue racking up losses.
It's not a protest. But it's putting himself first because nobody else in that organization has. And I'm not blaming the Heat.
Sorry. Can I add something here? Like sure. This comment from Matt, not to call you out, Matt, but Kyle Lowry is not fat. Like Wes, you and I are in the locker rooms. Like nobody in that locker room is fat. Kyle is not fat.
None of the players in that locker room.
None of the players in that locker room. No player I've ever seen. Like the most lumpy player I've ever seen is Nemanja Bjelica. And that's about it. Other than I can't even think of a single player that might qualify as fat or
I've got a couple, but I'm not going to call anybody out.
No. Now we need names. Come on.
Not in the Miami Heat. I've never covered one in the Miami Heat, but I could think of a few that I've seen in the locker room.
Soft, maybe. Not like at 3% body fat, not Jimmy Butler kind of levels, but Kyle Lowry is not fat. He's not. Like I just want that hate his style, hate the fact that he flops, hate the fact that
we lost a great flop battle. We missed out on a great flop battle against that Jalen Brunson versus Kyle Lowry. But it would have just been both of them on the floor, and then it would have been a 4-on-4 otherwise. It would have just both of them rolling around on the floor trying to get the eye of an official.
2 games between Philadelphia, James Harden, Joel Embiid, and Kyle Lowry. That is Flop Fest 2023. Yeah, I robbed.
And I have no issue with flopping. You got to do it these days, right? If you don't flop, you don't get the call. But
anyway, that's my 2 cents. My rant.
Look, like I said, I don't think it's a nefarious thing. I don't think that there's like I said, if it was that bad, Kyle Lowry would not be on the bench with his teammates, with the coaches, talking to the coaches, talking to the teammates. That's what's so weird is that this does exist in a middle ground, and that's what I'm trying to say. I think the Miami Heat are putting the Miami Heat first, as they should, and Kyle Lowry is putting Kyle Lowry first, as he should. And those two things right now don't meet. And when they do meet, we'll see Kyle Lowry in a Heat uniform playing again. But right now, There's too much distance between those two sides. And I have no problem with either team. If you want to say that Kyle Lowry is not putting the team first, you would be correct in saying that. And then it's up to you whether or not you want to blame him or not. Right now, like you said, he's 37 years old. He's got a limited window left of his career that he's trying to maximize. He's trying to maximize his earning power, trying to maximize how much he can win, whether it's in Miami or elsewhere. And so he's taking care of him, and the Heat are taking care of them. I think there might be a little bit of frustration on Eric Spoelstra's part of, hey, I don't have my full allotment of players. I would like to get them out there. I think any coach would be like that. That's an understandable thing. Your coach wants his players, right? Like we've seen this all the time. Yeah, when there's too much distance between what both sides want, and eventually they'll come together, and then that's when you'll see Kyle Lowry playing again. But indefinitely is the word that I keep coming back to, and that's the reporting used locally. That's the word used locally. It's a weird word to use at this point in the season, considering that we have no other updates around it. And I think that's why it's just sort of open-ended right now.
Maybe that's the way of avoiding the evaluation in 2 weeks kind of thing, and just leaving it so open-ended that we have no idea. Kind of the same way.
Why is he not listed as questionable or day-to-day? He's just out like a day before every game. That's the thing. Like, it's so weird.
Yeah, and again, if Spo's just not playing him just because he's persnickety and whatever, like I don't think Kyle is just going to show up and be like, "Yeah, I got nothing else to do." Like we know Kyle would prefer doing something else other than just being at the arena and wasting 4 hours to watch his team lose or something like that. Like I think he's, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being overly optimistic.
Kenneth writes this. Like the point is that we don't know what's going on because there's no transparency. Is Kyle okay or not? Is he done for the season or not? Put this to bed so that there's no more speculation. I do think that fans care about this. I think I'm right. I think my initial question was people just want to know.
Dude,
like,
we're also talking to 200 people that tuned into YouTube to watch our podcast on a Monday morning. Like those are the
Heat fans that matter. Yeah, look, I know, but like I think that there is if you're a Heat fan that doesn't care at 10 a.m. on a Monday, you probably are tuning in at 7:30 on a Monday night when the game starts and be like, oh, Kyle Lowry's not playing again. What's going on? I think just that question is a normal thing. Whether or not you care deeply about Kyle Lowry or his feelings or what the drama may or may not be behind the scenes, I think you do care about like he's not playing again. What's it been, like a month? Yeah, I think you want to know what's going on. Yeah.
All right. So let's answer this question then.
Sure.
What do you think happens? I'll give my perspective. You give yours.
17 games left this season.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3. Yeah. I think he plays again. I have no idea when.
Yeah, I don't either.
Okay.
I absolutely think he plays, and I also absolutely think he's going to make a positive impact. But
that's the hope. And you made that great point before the break. You're like, hey, just let him sit as long as he wants, and when he comes, because if he's healthy, this team helps. And Gabe Vincent has not been awesome lately either. Like you need production from that position, and when Lowry's healthy, he's very, very productive, and he's very, very helpful. I'm very interested to see how he works with Kevin Love, because now you've got two experienced high basketball IQ guys who are sort of unselfish and get guys involved and stuff like that. When you said take all the time you want, I don't know that you meant this long, but
right.
He's maybe that's what happened. Maybe Kyle Lowry listened to Locked On Heat. He was like, you know what? David's right. I'm going to take as much time as I want.
I don't doubt it. I know we are the preferred podcast of all Heat players.
That's true.
Or at least Nikola Jovic, who we were asked right now, is he going to play this regular season? So that's another question we can answer now. For
another one that's out. We have no real update on that. So he still has to graduate high school. That hasn't happened yet.
Okay, but give your best guess. Does he play again this regular season?
Oh no. Does he play again? I don't know that he maybe like garbage time or something. But these games are too important right now. Yeah. Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Remember to subscribe to new episodes of Locked On Heat on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Ring the bell to get notified as soon as new episodes go up. We will have a post-game show for you tonight after the Heat and the Hawks play. But now you can make your second listen, game-to-game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result, Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. David, talk to you later tonight.
Absolutely.